Hello everybody and welcome back. Next up, I want to try to break down or explain the concept of a Boolean, at least in the frame of reference of recruiting. So if you were to look up Booleans online, it's going to be much more complicated. They can really be algebraic notations and essentially logical propositions. However, from the frame of recruiting, it's much more simple. So Booleans for recruiters are often just search terms or phrases that we build to find qualified candidates for various positions. So looking to the concept of a Boolean or the components, we have four specific things that we will observe day to day. So you are going to notice that we will have quotation marks, asterisks, and or statements. These are really going to help us to build our Booleans. So if we wanted to use quotation marks, the quotation marks will essentially mean everything in between quotes is exactly what we're going to search for, no more and no less. This is often used for strings of text. For example, if you wanted to find the word customer service, you would type in customer and the word service. This way you will find customer and service together with a single space in between. Exactly what is in between the two quotes. Now, if you want to use an asterisk, this is essentially going to create what we would call a truncated statement. So, for example, if you wanted to find an administrator, but people on a resume could put administration or admin, then you could type something like admin followed by the operator, in this case the asterisk, and this would create the search for admin with everything that could come after that word, which in this term is literally going to be admin, administration, administrator, administrate. So really everything following the N or wherever you would place the operator, it is essentially going to search for that ending for that word. And or are going to be your inclusive and exclusive statements. So if you want to find, for example, in the previous example, customer service, you could also type in customer and service. This is a much more complicated way, but will yield essentially the same results as this. However, it will not be in the exact same order. So this is where Booleans can get tricky. If you wanted the words customer and service, this means anyone with those two words on their resume will appear in this search, as opposed to those two words in this exact order. So this could mean at the top of the resume, they could put helped customers, and then at the bottom of the resume, they could put something about a different customer service job. So you may not actually find a customer service person or individual or really anything along those lines. So to simplify that, really this will apply to any statement. It's the same with or. So using the previous example, let's just say you wanted someone who had experience with customers or service. This may not make sense, but just for the example, we would type in customer or service, and the Boolean operators in this case will be case sensitive. You're going to find a resume with the word customer or the word service instead of both together. Now, if you were to leave or in lowercase, then you would be looking for the word customer, the word or, and the word service, essentially, just as they would appear on a resume. So that's where it can get a little tricky. Now, Booleans can be as simple as essentially customer and service or customer service supervisor, key holder, something along those lines. But when you get into some of the more complicated searches, then it will honestly get a little bit more demanding. So going into our examples here, I figured we would write the first one together and then move on to the other two that are more of, again, just general examples, but will most likely be much more complicated in the job itself. So if we're looking for a customer service supervisor, you're very likely going to have a much longer description than this for the job. However, let's just say we're looking for an energetic individual. They have a passion for helping others. Previous retail and customer service experience is required. Management experience is a plus. A degree is preferred but not required. The degree often you will not need to put in a Boolean search because many job sites, including LinkedIn, Monster, and ZipRecruiter, have an option to check for the degree. But if you want a specific type of degree, you could include that in the Boolean. So if we want a customer service supervisor, we can start with, let's just say, customer service. And now here's where we can use parentheses. And this is a little bit trickier, which was not included at the top. But parentheses are essentially creating a larger blanket or statement. So we will have supervisor or, and then this is where we're going to use another quote and put manager. Now, what this does is this creates essentially a Boolean within a Boolean. It's not very complicated. It basically means I'm looking for someone that has customer service on their resume and one of these two statements, supervisor or manager, because honestly, many people will put on their resumes one or the other, and they're really interchangeable in this type of a position. Then let's just say we want to have a degree. We can list the degree here in quotes. You would have to put and if you wanted that degree. But again, often there'll be a checkbox in the search tool you're using. So this will mean, or this Boolean will require both of these terms, meaning we're going to find someone with customer service and management. So that would really be that simple potentially, but if there's any other search terms you want, maybe they need experience with cash handling, then you could add cash handling or something along those lines for this string. You can really make it as complicated or as simple as you would like. The more terms you add, bear in mind the more variability you're going to have on the resumes. And you'll start to see people will put a variety of things on their resumes that they may not have done because they're talking about the environment and not what they did. So putting this into perspective, let's say we're looking for someone for a tier 2 help desk. This is going to be someone who will typically answer phones, solve problems of moderate complexity in the IT environment. Well, tier 2 or tier and the number 2 would be ideal search terms for someone who's done this job before. So one thing I like to do is search for people with a similar job title, especially if I know the position I'm hiring for is going to have competitive pay. So for this term, we need someone with a Network Plus certification, 2 years of experience in help desk roles, and tier 2 support is preferred, but not required. I always start with the preferences just to be safe. It just makes your life a lot easier if you find out later on down the road the person you found that didn't have that requirement, you thought it wasn't a requirement, but all of a sudden it becomes a requirement. So start there, work your way back. So we're going to go with tier 2 or tier and the number 2, because often you may not know how people are going to phrase this on their resume. You could even throw a third or with quotes and put tier 2 without the space. Or help desk, because again, the tier 2 experience is not required. So this will search for one of these essentially 3 terms. The reason these are in quotes are because these are very, very similar, so we group them together. And they are going to need their Network Plus. However, Network Plus could appear with or without a space, so to avoid losing out on candidates, we'll include both. So that will provide essentially, again, someone with help desk or tier 2 on their resume and a requirement of Network Plus. Again, it's not always that simple. You can throw in many more terms, but this is, again, just giving you a quick run through. So the last example, going with something a little bit trickier, information security officer. We're looking for a seasoned professional to fill an opening as a chief information security officer. This individual is going to have a bachelor's in computer science, 5 to 7 years of experience, and hold their CISSP certification. Bonus points if they have experience with visualization software. So we know from work that we've done that could be Power BI or Tableau, could be other software as well, but we'll start with those. So we're looking for someone that has experience. Many search tools will allow you to choose X number of years of experience, so we won't have to put that in the Boolean. We're going to start with ISO or Information Security Officer, because individuals could use the acronym or they could spell it out on their resume. Also, if they put both, they'll appear closer to the top of our search results because they're more relevant. often more so with the and statements. Next up, we're going to type in security framework in parentheses with an and, because we're going for something a little bit more niche, so we want to be more specific. And we know from talking to hiring managers that working with security frameworks is a huge plus. Then and CISSP, notice this is not in quotes, there's no space. So it's just one word, which means all we're looking for is the word in between and the word in between and. And then they need the visualization experience. So we're going to type in Power BI or Tableau. That means we're going to find someone that has ISO or Information Security Officer on their resume, and Security Framework, and CISSP, and one of these two in their resume. The reason this is a more solid Boolean is some people may list on their resume that they coordinated with an Information Security Officer, but they themselves may not be. So to make sure that we have someone that's a little bit more specific, we throw in terminology that's more relatable to that role, Security Framework. They have to list CISSP. Often, people are not going to list the certifications of others that they worked with, so the visualization experience will again also be a huge plus. Now, what about the asterisks? We discussed those, but we haven't used one. So here, in the example, this one is network admin. This is going to return network admin, administrator, or network administration, etc. Essentially any iteration of admin with whatever may follow. So creating a more tricky search for the Information Security Officer example, we're going to do the same Boolean, but with network administration experience. This is unlikely because network administration may not be as high level of a task, but let's say we want someone that truly understands network operations. We're going to use the same exact Boolean, but we're going to include and then network admin with an asterisk. This way, any iteration of network administration, administrator, etc. will appear on the resume as well. So this will create, again, a much more restrictive search result. However, it is going to make sure that the individuals that pop up in our search are much more relevant. Again, make sure that as you're looking through your search results, Booleans are meant to be very dynamic. If you see a lot of resumes that come up that are not related, take a look at a couple of them. Often, again, people will describe on a resume not what they did, but who they worked with, the environment that they were in. So if you're looking for someone who is very results oriented, you could type in the word results, but anyone who put the word results on their resume will pop up. And you'll learn very quickly that there are many changes that you're going to have to make over time. Now, I hope this was very helpful for you all. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, send me a message, drop them in the comment box below. I'll do my best to answer them. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed.